Another massive injury update to the Ohio State offensive line. This is an emergency snap judgments. The Columbus Dispatch was the first to report on Tuesday night that Ohio State starting center Seth McLaughlin has injured his Achilles and looks like he will miss the rest of the season. That is Jeremy Birmingham and Bill Landis. I am Austin Ward. We have been working throughout Tuesday evening. We were aware of the rumors as well, like everybody else, and certainly this is not the kind of news that anybody was hoping for at Ohio State, especially on the heels of Josh Simmons being lost for the year in the Oregon game. So now it looks like Ohio State down 2 starting offensive linemen heading into the make or break period of the season, starting on Saturday with a top 5 matchup against Indiana at noon in the Horseshoe. Going to get more updates on Wednesday, but we certainly didn't want the first thing anybody saw would be a stock watch on the podcast daily on Wednesday morning without addressing what was going on here. And Bill, this is not a great development for the Buckeyes.
No, as we were trying to figure out what was going on, we were talking like, so this is my 11th season. You guys have been covering Ohio State a little longer than that. They have had a remarkable run of being healthy on the offensive line. I can recall one long-term offensive line injury for this team in my time covering it, which was Brandon Bowen back in 2017 when he broke his leg. And this year they have 2, and they have 2 to, you never want to lose anybody, but 2 to probably arguably the 2 most inexpensible guys on that offensive line, with Josh Simmons, a guy who was playing toward being a pretty high NFL draft pick, and Seth McLaughlin, who was playing awesome this year and had done so much for this offensive line to get them, I think, playing at a fairly high level and helping Ohio State navigate the Josh Simmons injury to begin with, which is his leadership and his poise and his experiences playing along the offensive line. So, like, yeah, this sucks. Like, there's no other way to put it, and no way to put it more eloquently than that. This is awful. I feel terrible for Seth, first and foremost, but yeah, now it's certainly a challenge for Ohio State to try to move forward without him.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, it sucks. I mean, it sucks for the kid personally, who we've all gotten to know and have really found, like, just he's been a joy to be around, and he has been an absolute emotional leader for this team on the offense. An offense that at times feels a little bit too cool for school, and he's let himself be like the emotional guy, and I think it's been great. It's been huge for not just the offensive line since Josh Simmons went out, but the work that he's done in helping bring along Carson Hinsman and being there for the other guys has been vital. But then you add on top of that he is, in my opinion, and maybe I'm biased, probably am, but I think was looking to be the front runner to win the Remington Award as the nation's best center after what was, many people thought was a waste of a transfer for Ohio State, because people didn't think he was any good because he struggled snapping the ball for a couple games at Alabama, and it sucks. And now Ohio State is oddly probably better positioned to handle this loss than they were the Josh Simmons loss, but it doesn't feel good when you're losing the unquestioned now leader of the offensive line.
Felt like a cruel joke because the day started, Bill Landis was wearing the run the damn ball hat. Ohio State put out its graphic for the week. Who was on it? Seth McLaughlin. I think this is like, that can't be real. Like, this guy he's the one that you feel like you couldn't afford to lose at this point after, with Josh Simmons already going down. I agree with you, Berm, that, if you look back at for the collective time that all three of us have been covering Ohio State, the Buckeyes are better equipped. No one is perfectly equipped to manage this loss. I'm not trying to paint a sunny picture or a silver lining here, but any injuries that Ohio State had suffered on the offensive line at pretty much any year over the last 13, we're going to completely wipe that group out. And I don't know that that is entirely the case. Is it going to be easy to replace Seth McLaughlin? No, definitely not. But they have never before had a center with a year's worth of starting experience, not necessarily waiting on the bench, because Carson Hinsman has been playing at left guard for the last 2 to 3 weeks. But you have someone with starting experience at center who couldn't step in, and Austin Sareveld has started already at left guard this year for Ohio State. So it is possible. I don't know if that's the way that this week is going to transpire heading into the Indiana matchup, but it's one scenario, and it's one that Ohio State would never have really had before in the past, Bill.
Yeah, I mean, I was certainly someone who thought the Josh Simmons injury was going to be insurmountable for Ohio State, and without an obvious solution, it ended up finding a pretty good one. And I suppose the solution here is at least a little bit more obvious with, your starting center from last season still on this roster and playing pretty well at left guard right now. But I don't say that to make anybody feel better about it. I don't say that to say like, this will be easy for Ohio State to figure out. It's not going to be. It's going to be a tremendous challenge for this team. But I suppose there's some comfort in there being a roadmap to figure it out with some experienced players at key positions relative to this conversation still around. My assumption would be that Hinsman moves the center and Sareveld goes back to left guard. I guess there's a Josh Padilla conversation to be had. I don't want to speculate too much on any of that. We talk with Ryan Day on Wednesday night and maybe learn a little bit more about that potentially. But yeah, I suppose in an odd way, they are better positioned to suffer the brunt of this than they were the Josh Simmons injury, but doesn't make me feel any better about it. And honestly, the way I feel is less about even Ohio State's prospects and what they can do moving forward, and just like really terrible for Seth because of the season he was having. Like that is kind of what's on my mind more than anything right now. Because I agree with Berm. I think he was trending well to be in that Remington Trophy conversation. He was a tremendously improved player, I think, from last year to this year, integrated seamlessly with this team and just did a lot for the offense. And I have no doubt that he'll try to find ways to still have that voice and be a presence for this team as it moves forward into the rest of the season. But man, what a loss, not even from a talent standpoint, just from like a leadership kind of go-to guy sort of standpoint for this team on the field.
Yeah, and it's important to note, I mean, as we're talking about this, it's probably less than 5 hours, removed from Ohio State having to consider what their options are. And so I think, similar to the Josh Simmons discussion where we're talking about, well, maybe you just move Luke Montgomery out there or Austin Sareveld out there so that you only have one new guy in a new spot. But, I do think that there will be some discussion about having Josh Padilla be the center and maybe seeing what he can do in that role. They love what he's done in practice. He's had sparing opportunities in games. And so you're not going to know for sure until probably Thursday of what Ohio State's going to do because it's Wednesday. I mean, they're going to have two more practices before the Indiana game. If there's one spot on the defensive line that Indiana has a really good player, it's right at the defensive tackle. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ohio State attacks it. We have seen steady growth out of Carson Hinsman, and obviously the Iron Buckeye that he was this summer, I think it makes the most sense for him to be the guy, but Ohio State's going to have to make some decisions and try to figure out where the best way to replace the impact of Seth McLaughlin is. And again, it's hard to even really talk about it because this is all relatively fresh, but Ryan Day will certainly have some big decisions and big discussions on Wednesday. And I'm sure they're already happening. They're probably still ongoing right now at the Woody as we record this on Tuesday night at 10:45. So I don't know that we'll find out anything even tomorrow night, Wednesday, when you guys talk to Ryan Day at the Woody Hayes Athletic Center. I would doubt there's going to be a concrete plan finalized by, tomorrow.
Well, they don't have a ton of time. As you said, Berm, like they have 2 practices, but if you're putting in a game plan and you're making plans about how you're going to move forward, I don't know that you can rotate 2 guys and then say, well, we're going to carry over a battle into Thursday. I think they are going to go look at some of the options that they have. You have the practice film from Tuesday night, and you're going to have to pretty much make a decision. And I don't know if Ryan Day will tell us what that decision is, but I don't think that they could go into Wednesday night's practice and be like, I don't know, we're gonna evaluate one practice tonight and then make a decision. Like you have to make a game plan. You have to develop some sort of chemistry and cohesion going into this game. That is why Carson Hinsman makes the most sense to me. You have talked plenty, even going back to the preseason, about Josh Padilla, Berm, like that Justin Fry and the coaching staff there on the offensive line, they really like his potential and his upside. But if you're trying to make something seamless going into to place someone that hasn't lost all year, I know that we're rushing into this right now,
yeah,
and I'm not saying that they have to pick Carson Hinsman, but seems like it makes the most sense.
I think you're right. I mean, I don't think you can go into Wednesday's practice with an idea that you have a competition. I'm just saying that's it, it's 10:45 on Tuesday as we're talking about this. I would guarantee you that the offensive line brain trust and Ryan Day, who all thought they were going home for dinner at 8:00, are still in that building thinking them through and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, if I can extrapolate, I guess, like Ryan Day has told us, I think, what his thought process would be on this already. The reason they picked Carson Hinsman to play against Penn State is because of Carson's experience. So why would they not do that now? Right? You have an experienced guy who has started 12 games at center. You have a less experienced, but still some experienced guy in Austin Sarevelt who started a couple of games at left guard. It's probably that simple.
It should be, because
it should be.
You have to ask yourself, which position can you afford to have the inexperience at? And I don't think it's center.
Correct. Right. So, and I don't mean like that as anything against Josh Padilla. Like I think he's still got a pretty bright future here. He's incredibly young. He's a redshirt freshman who's hardly played. Right. So nothing about what might happen the next couple of weeks should tell you anything about his future. It's just about what makes the most sense in an emergency situation. And I think it makes total sense to fall back on experience, because that's what Ohio State did last time, even when it required massive shuffling. This actually wouldn't require that much unknown, because you've seen Carson Hinsman play center and you've seen Austin Sarevelt play left guard.
Well, as you both said, and I'll reiterate, the first thing that you think about is what has been, taken here from Seth McLaughlin. He's given everything to Ohio State that they possibly could have asked for. He's, up for one of the most prestigious academic awards in the country. He has been in the process of, 4 or 5 rounds of giving back to the Mid-Ohio Food Bank with his hats. Like he has been a very, very good center, if not the best center in the country so far this year. So all that has been taken away from him. And you think about him and his family and moving on from this injury. You hope that he's able to get back as soon as possible to take the next step in his career. But it looks like that will be the end of it with the Buckeyes. And yeah,
I got a message back as we were recording this that he, like, just to confirm, he is out for the year.
Well, there you go. And can I say one thing? Because I know that I've already seen on Twitter and social media people blaming the turf at Ohio State. I don't know if that's fair or unfair. I'm sure that, we've talked ad nauseum about the turf and how that slit turf or whatever it's called is certainly something that Ohio State has to deal with, and the NFL has suggested that teams should not use because of the increase of injuries and soft tissue, non-contact stuff. I don't want to inside baseball too much, but as we were walking off the field on Saturday in Chicago, I heard Seth McLaughlin say to people around him that his Achilles felt tight. I don't know if that was relayed to anywhere else. It's probably irrelevant if it was. But I want to make sure people aren't going, oh, the Ohio State turf caused this. So it feels like it was something that was maybe going to happen one way or another. And unfortunately, it did. And now you just hope for a speedy recovery for him and his family to make sure that they get the support they need. And I'm confident they'll get that at Ohio State.
Yep. So that's the situation. These are the snap judgments about it. There will be more coverage coming. We'll have the full breakdown after Ryan Day's comments on Wednesday night. There is going to be a podcast daily in between. We're not going to be talking about the Ohio State offensive line because this hadn't happened yet. So that's more inside baseball. That's the situation. Wish nothing but the best to Seth and the rest of his family. Ohio State working to replace him now as they get ready for Indiana on Saturday at noon in the Horseshoe. A daunting prospect indeed, but maybe the Buckeyes are in a position to handle this in a way that they haven't been in the past. We'll find out then, and we'll find out more information and bring it to you as soon as we can on Wednesday on the podcast. For Jeremy Birmingham and Bill Landis, I am Austin Ward. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you tomorrow.